Good morning, everyone. This is Jack Gershfeld with Altinex, and today we're going to have AVSnap design webinar number 2, level 2. We're going a little bit more intermediate and have more functions to discuss. So let's go ahead and start. We have a full agenda for today. I'm going to go ahead and clear the project without saving it, and I'm going to immediately format it for 8.5 by 11 page so that we can use it for our experiments. So double click, select letter, size, apply, and we're here. I will go just a little bit slower. I've been going a little bit faster in the previous webinars because it was just introduction, but this one's going to take a little bit more time to explain some of the things, so I'm going to go just slightly slower. So with the AVSnap 6.0, we have added a couple of functions here, and one of them I want to look at is a backup size. As you can see right here, there's an icon right on the top, and it says backup size 106 megabytes. That means as I work with different projects, the AVSnap automatically backs up everything I do every 2 minutes for the last 6 minutes. So if I click on the backup size, it will tell you maximum backup size 100 megabytes and then clean backup folder. So you can increase the maximum backup size. If you keep it at 100 megabytes, once it goes about 10% above 100 megabytes, it will clean the oldest files and bring it back to 100 megabytes. So it will maintain the folder at 100 megabytes. If you want to unlimited, just put unlimited, it will just add to the folders continuously. I recommend around 100 to 250 megabytes. Anything more than that, it's not needed. Okay, so we'll go ahead and do this. And if you want, you can just click here and say clean backup folder, apply, and you can see now you're at 99 megabytes, so it cleaned everything up. So if you exceed 100 megabytes, just wait. You don't have to do anything. It will update everything by itself. There's a couple of other features that we added here, and one of the features is what we call send file. And what it allows you to do is to send AVSnap file directly from AVSnap environment. So if you're working with somebody, you can just click here, send file, and you have a couple of options. One is to send it to Altinex support if you have a difficulty, let's say you're programming or doing some design and something went wrong and you don't know how to fix it. Just send it to Altinex support and we'll take care of it from there. You can put notes right on the file. Or you can send to another. That means if you can send it to your customer, you can just send it to your customer right from here. So you don't need to have to save the file, then attach it to your email, and then send it to the customer. So it makes it a little bit faster and easier to use it. There's a couple other features I'll discuss a little bit later about the drafting services. But let's go ahead and start with the basic stuff again. In examples, we have put some examples: design project, project libraries, control project, and control libraries. Let's just load one simple example. It doesn't matter, just project 1. I mean, it's a simplified example, but just to make a point. Once loaded, so there is a simple project, control layout, system diagram, system layout, how you're going to actually hook up things, cable design, cable diagrams, cable adapters, and the template. So there's a small little project that we put together. So if you want to save this project with the password, you now have an option, and you can save the file with the password. As you can see, there's a save file with the password option. And when you do this, it will ask you to enter the password. Okay, so first what I'm going to do, I'm going to save file to a desktop, save as, so I don't override my original file. And I'll call it, for right now, I'll just call it my file, my project. And I will save it. So if you move right here, there's my project right here in the top left corner. So now that I saved it, I'm going to come back and say save with password, and I'm going to assign a password, in this case, Altinex. And we'll go back to desktop, my project, and it's saved. Yes. So right now, that project has a password. So what happens if we load this project? So I'm going to go and close this project. Let's move the page a little bit, and I'm going to take the project and load it back in. I just moved it and dropped it into the desk, into the environment. Now notice most of the tools are gone now on the left-hand side, and you can't modify anything. You can still kind of click on it and get options and everything, but it's now a protected file. Okay, if you want to unprotect it, you can use shortcut U. So if we go to F1, and you can see that shortcut U is lock and unlock selected object. If the file is locked, the same shortcut will ask you to re-enter password. So I can go ahead and type in Altinex and say OK, and now you have all of the functions available again on this project. Okay. So just to give you an idea of this. So that's how you protect it. Now you can do a couple of other things. Right now, even though you entered the project and you enter the password, when you save it, it's still going to keep the password. So for example, if you want to get rid of the password completely and say, I want to unprotect the file, you can go to set password option in under the file, and you're going to put the old password, Altinex, and just say OK. Now when you do this, your file is unprotected. So we're going to save that file now, start a new project, and then move this file to the desktop right here. And as you can see, when it started, all the tools are available. Your file is unprotected. So that's a little bit of a tricky. So when you password protect the project, even if you enter the password, the project is still protected. So you have to physically remove the password. Now you can also add additional functionality here. So let's go ahead and set the password, and you can say when you want the password to expire or the file to expire. So if you set an expiration date, you can say 60 days from now the file will expire, and therefore it cannot be even opened. In this case, when you send something that's preliminary, you always want to put 30 days expiration date. So in 30 days, you can send a new file. And then when you actually finish the last version of it and you say, okay, that's a final release to the customer, to yourself, then you can go ahead and release it without a password. You can also link project to a computer. And that means that you can only open it on a specific computer if you want to go that far. So by check unique ID, there's your unique ID right here. So on my computer, this is my unique ID right here. And you can tell the customer, give me your unique ID. Once you put it here, you link project to a specific computer and you save it. From now on, you can only open that particular project on this computer. When do you want to do this? Most of the time you want to do it when you create a user graphic interface or control program and you want to lock it to one computer so it's not moved from one computer to the other. If you're writing a code, you can protect programming code only. So by clicking here, your programming code is protected. The user can still change graphical user interface look and feel, but they cannot get into programming. So you get lots of capabilities of how to protect the files. You can also put your name and your phone number, and whenever a file is expired, it's going to say, please call Jack Gershfeld at this phone number and to help you. Let's move on with the next function that we haven't discussed yet, and that is the printing. How do we print the project? And especially I had a lot of questions. How do you print the project if you have a large page size and you want to print it on 8.5 by 11 pages and so forth? So the first thing we want to do is to press Control P, and that's going to give us the printer dialog. And right here you can set the margins. So let's say if I put 0.5 inch on each side, you can see it's automatically adjust the image how you want it to be on the page. Now, to do this, you must select Fit to Page, okay? Because if you don't select Fit to Page, then you can see part of the image will disappear here. But if you Fit to Page, then you can put the margins that you want, okay? You can also set margins to printer. So if I select, for example, I have a HP LaserJet, on a network printer, I can set to this LaserJet the margins, so to make sure that everything gets printed. So let's go ahead and cancel this, and I'm going to show you something else. I'm going to select a bigger page. So we're going to start a new project, and I'm going to create a large page. Let's say I create a page size C, 22 by 17. Okay, we're going to go ahead and apply that, and we'll do a couple of drawings, a couple of images here so you can see how they overlay as we print it on the multiple pages. Okay, so here's our design, simple, and now I want to print this, Control P. Now you can print it on 8.5 by 11 just by fitting it to the page, okay? So right here, you can see if I remove fit to page, then you're only going to get one corner of it. You can definitely move things around. You can put 2 inches here, and it will kind of move things around. But it's still not going to print the whole image. So let's go ahead and set everything to 0. And right here on the bottom left corner, we have a split pages. So when you click split pages, it will automatically take the page size and it will fit it to 8.5 by 11 pages. So you'll end up with 4 pages, but you have the complete project on the pages. So that's how simple that is. Now, if you go ahead and make the changes and make this, instead of the landscape, a portrait, let's say, apply, and I'm going to go ahead and move things into the portrait style, and I'm going to go Control P. You can see it automatically readjusted it. It knows the format, it knows the position, and it will automatically change the position of the 8.5 by 11 to fit into these pages. So you can go as large of the project as you want. If we go to 34 by 44, that's a large project, large page. Just press Control P, and you can see it's automatically going to split everything. So as you can see, there's a lot of flexibility of how you want to print it. Let's go one step further on the printing. All right. And what you want to do, you want a lot of times to see what is your print area. So I'm going to go ahead and click the print area. And you can see this is your default print area. That means your 8.5 by 11. It basically takes the page that the printer has and tells you what the print area is. So it gives you right away if you have the right page and you need to split the pages. So double click on this and let's go ahead and select 8.5 by 11. And you can see now this is your print area. So when you do a drawing, make sure to fit to the print area, because the print area is related to the margins of the printer themselves, even though they're not here, but it knows the margins on the printer. So it would be the same as setting the printer margins to 0.17. And you can see now there's a printer margins sitting. Okay, so you can go ahead and turn this off. All right, a couple of other things. We're going to talk about default settings. If none of the objects are selected on a page, that means the page is empty or none of the objects are selected, then you can set up default things for the page. So next time you draw something, it will have default settings. For example, if I want the line color to be blue, or let's say red, I can adjust it to red when no objects are selected, and it's going to become red the next time I draw the line. You can see there's a red line. If I want default to be black, I set it to default, and I can draw the line, and now it's black. So some people get confused because they change this, and they say, why did my line become red or green or blue? Why did my fill become different than what I expected? And the reason is because when you don't select anything on the page, but you adjust any of the settings, let's say a font size, transparency, anything, that will store it automatically as a default setting. And once it's default setting, next time you draw it, it's going to come back as a default setting. Okay. So in this case, I have a black line, black text, and page color is white, and fill, there's no fill. So if I draw the image, it's going to look like this. If I go ahead and take the line red and text green and fill pink, if I draw the line next time, it's going to go like this. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this. change back everything to default, black, and we're all set. If you would like to work with the pages of a different color, you can definitely change it. Just click on P, and you can select the page, and it becomes black, and you can draw, and the line can become white, and you can now draw with a white line on black background. So it's up to you. Let's go ahead and put it back to normal, how I like it, so we can go ahead and continue. All right, let's move on with some other things. I'm going to go ahead and open the last project I had here, which is my project. Save the changes, no. And what we want to do is to see which pages we don't want to give to the customers. For example, sometimes I have 20, 30-page project, and there may be 10 pages where it's just my notes. I take images from the web, I put some lines, I put some symbols, I just throw them as like a repository pages where I put different things. And I still want to be able to print all of the pages in PDF, but I don't want to show some of the pages. So what I would do, I would make pages as hidden pages, so just like templates. So if I go to cable adapters, I would just make it hidden and hide it and hide it. So now when I print it, I'm only going to print the pages that are visible. The other pages is just for my view as a reference. And I do a lot of times. A lot of times I make pages that are just the reference pages where I collect the information. Okay. So that gives you overall how we do the pages and default settings and how we save the file. Let's go a little bit more into the symbols. So we're going to start a new project. And in the new project, I'm going to go ahead and create a single symbol. I'm going to just make a very simple. I turn the grid on so that I can create. I like to create all of the symbols on the grid. And so let's go ahead and draw that. Okay, and the grid, we'll set the grid 0.05 and 0.1. So there we go. So there's my symbol. And I won't go too much into detail in the symbol creation right now, but I'm just going to create a couple of input ports and a couple of output ports just to make a point. So there's my symbol. I'm not going to make any snap points. Right-click on my drawing, and then convert to symbol, and this is going to be my diagram symbol. And the last thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to put a couple of snap points. Okay, I'm not going to define them, but I'm just going to put them in. Now, if you have a grid turned on, it will automatically put the snap point on the grid, so you don't have to worry about it. If your grid is off, which I use letter G to turn it on and off, then it will position it wherever your mouse pointer is. But if you have a grid on, as long as you're within the snap point of the grid, it will snap it right into the grid. So now I have a symbol. I can now save symbols separately. So you can see, not only you can put it in the library like we did before, so you can put it right back into the library on the right-hand side. And by the way, I use shortcut E, a letter E, to show the library. So you can see, as I press letter E, I show the structure of the files, and then you can select the libraries, and then you can completely remove it from the display. You can do the same thing under View and say Show Library Viewer. You can turn it back on, or you can turn it back off. So now that I have it, you can put it in the library. But what I like a lot of times to do is to save the symbol all by itself. So I'm going to right-click on it and say Save the symbol. And when I save it, let's go to desktop, and I'm going to say my symbol for now. And you can see it is now individual symbols. So you now have AMT, which is your AVSnap project. You have ASB, which is the AVSnap symbol, and you have ALB, which is the library itself. Okay, so I have a folder where I keep lots of symbols, not necessarily in the library. It makes it easier for me, but it's up to you the way you work. So now that when I have a new project, I can quickly pull the symbol out and just drop it right into the project. It doesn't have to go through library or nothing else. Sometimes people name conventions it and put in the folders with specific, either alphabetically or they put by numerically, by model numbers, but sometimes it's easier to do it this way. So it's up to you how you want to do the symbols. Okay. Now, the next thing we're going to show is how do you do a tracing symbol or symbol that you want to just trace a model. So I'm going to go ahead and go on the website, and let's go to Google. I'm doing it on the site here. In a second, I'll show you what I'm doing. And let's say you want to create freehand drawing object, and I'll say laptop. You don't want it to be photographic, you don't want anything, you just want it to be freestanding. So, well, let's say I'm going to use, let's say this picture right here, and I'm going to draw out the laptop. So I'm going to select F6. Remember, that's a shortcut for capturing screen. You'll be running a software called Screen Capture or Screen Hunter, and you can scan the image and just click on the AVSnap and just paste it here. So that's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is, and it depends on the browser and operating system, you can drag it directly to your screen right from here. Some people reported that it doesn't work on all the browsers, but in my particular case, it works fine with the Firefox. All right, so let's come back into here, and we're going to outline this symbol and create a hand drawing. Okay, so first what I want to do is to make a line red as a default, because doing it red will make it easy for me to see it. Now the next thing I want to do, and that's what we're going to do, introduction to layers, I want to put on the background layer so it doesn't move, so I don't accidentally select it. You can definitely press U and lock it in place so you can't move it, and you can see that mouse pointer shows that there's a lock. But the point is that you don't want it to be even selected as you work on it. So I'm going to unlock it, and I'm going to go right here on the bottom there that says Layer 1. While the object is selected, I'm going to click on Layer 1. That moves this object to Layer 1. And right on the left-hand side, you will see that a little tab comes out and says, hey, there's a Layer 1 available here. Okay? So under the layer, there's a 3 rectangular lines here that correspond to 3 rectangular lines on the left-hand side. So one is printing option. That means you can turn on and off if it prints. The next one is a lock option, and the next one is visible option. So let's go ahead. I can turn it off like this, and I don't even see the symbol, even though there's a Layer 1, but it's not visible. I can turn it back on by clicking on Layer 1, or I can turn it back off. So we're going to come back and click on this again. But I'm going to unclick the green and the red lines. So you can see now I can draw on top of it without even selecting the object. If I want to move the object, I can click on Layer 1, move things around here, then click again, and it's now locked, and I can draw on top of it. So we're going to go ahead and draw a symbol really quickly. We call it a trace. And the way we're going to trace it, we're going to use a special function. If you just use an object, a line object to draw it, it's okay. But that's going to become a little bit tedious because you have to click on every once you draw it. Let me see, in this case, we accidentally draw it in the wrong layer. So I'm going to go ahead and select the layer. Make sure before you start drawing the layer, the line, go to the main layer right here on the bottom left corner. So let's go ahead and we draw the line, and you can see if I draw the line, then I have to later select the line again. So I want it to be a little bit more automatic. So what we're going to do is click here, and then we're going to press a tab key. A tab key will change the icon. You can see the icon change with automatic. It's called the gluing mode, okay, where the lines are glued together. So I'm going to go ahead and draw the first line. But you can see it's now attached to it. So as I scroll through, I can just click and continue the drawing, okay? So I don't need to stop for a second or do anything else. I just continue. Now, don't worry about the thickness of the line. Don't worry about pretty much anything right now. Just outline the object so you can get the basic shape. And finally, you come back here. Now, notice that as you move your mouse, whichever endpoint is closer, that's where it's going to try to connect. So the last line, you want to kind of move it by hand. Click and move. And then finally, come back here and connect it. So that's your outline, okay? Press Escape, and you're out of here. Now, press C for cable. See, I use my left hand, so it becomes very easy. First line, and then I'm just going to go around here, and then draw it from here. That's the second line, and we're done with this object. Press C again, automatically select the next mode. I'm going to go and outline this little dark place right here. If anything goes wrong, just press letter C. That will give you back into the mode where you can draw the line. Okay, C again. And that's basically, I think we're done with basic outline. You can definitely draw a couple more lines to make it a little pretty, but the outline is okay. Let's just go ahead and do one more for the keyboard so we can see it right here, and we're done. Okay. So now that we're done with this, I'm going to go ahead and delete the picture below it. So I'm going to go to layer 1, select this, delete the picture, and go back to main, and now this is my outline. Now, selecting the outside line, you see we draw the lines outside. I'm going to go ahead and select the color, fill color, which is light gray, and then right-click here, and it will be on the fill, and it will fill it gray. Now, the screen may be a little bit lighter gray, so I'm going to select lighter gray, fill color, right-click, and now it's my screen. Finally, I want to select the outline to be black, so I'm going to say line color is black. And now I'm going to select all of it, right-click, convert to symbol. It's the outline symbol, and now I can adjust it to different sizes, and you'll have a nice picture. If you need to put, so there's, by adding maybe a snap point, you're all done. So it's very easy to create an outline symbols. Of course, you can use mirror functions if you want to turn it left or turn it right. The mirror function is on the bottom left corner here. Okay. And right-click, save symbol. It's desktop, and just put laptop, and you're done. Okay. And as you can see now, I have two symbols here. I have my symbol and a laptop symbol. If I start designing a new project, I can just put a laptop right into here. And notice that whenever you drag a symbol in, or the symbol in, it always puts it on the middle of the page. So now you have your 4 inputs, quickly put in and start the drawing. All right. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about layers. I talked just initially about a little bit about layers when we started this, but I want to spend a little bit more time. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this for now, and we're going to go to layers. I'm going to turn back the layer that I turned off, and let's see a couple of functions. First, you can name the layers anything you want. So right-clicking, right mouse button, click on the layer text will give you an option here. In this case, I might say plans or drawing. That may be background. I can also make another layer called audio routing. Audio. You can also call another layer video. Video, and you can also say maybe power. So I do this a lot if I want to on the same on the same drawing to show multiple things and switch between them. So in this case, let's say if I have a plan of the building I need to work on. So I'm going to go ahead and download the plan. Let's go ahead on the side panel here. So here's a couple of things that I found. They're just going to be just for our example here. So I'm going to go ahead and select one and move it into here. So here's our home theater that we'd like to build, and there's a plan, and we're going to do things around that home theater to see if we can make it look nice and see where we're going to put things. A lot of times I do this preliminary work before I do the actual drawings just to see where we're going to position everything. So in this case, I'd like to move it to a different layer. So I'm going to move it to layer plans, and I'm going to lock it in place. So as you can see now, it's locked in place. I can draw on top of this, and I don't have to worry about it moving. Now, sometimes this drawing needs to be lighter in color. So I'm going to go back to the layer right here, and I'm going to do a couple of things. I want to get rid of the background color completely, this white, and I also want to make a transparency so that it's not as dark. So transparency is right here on the top left corner, right next to the text here. There's a little icon called transparency. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll, and as you can see, I can make it dim. So in this case, I'm going to make it 70% transparent. So that means I can draw on top of it without it interfering with what I'm doing here. So what else can we do here? Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the normal layer. Right-click on the plans. You can set the brightness of the layer. If you have lines on it, you can set the brightness, or you can set transparency like we did before. Okay. Now, let me show you something. Sometimes you have objects that are transparent, and you can't find those objects, so you don't know which ones you made transparent. And I'll explain to you why it's so important. So we have a function. In a transparency box, if you double-click it, anything that's transparent will be outlined with a yellow. So if I take my main screen, and I'm going to make a rectangle filled with, let's say, orange right now. There's my rectangle. If I make it transparent, you can see the rectangle becomes outlined with yellow. So if I double-click here, it disappears, and now you can work with this. But if I double-click, it shows all transparent objects. The important part of it is when you're trying to print it, and that's what we're going to look at right now. So I have two transparent objects, and I'm going to press Control-P. You get a warning that says project contains transparent or combined objects. Print is switched to bitmap mode, okay? So when you're in this mode, you can see that the print transparent and combined objects, there's a check mark here. If you remove this, then the objects that are transparent will not be printed. So it's really important to heed to the warning, okay? So print transparent, and it tells you how many pixels or how many dots per millimeter you're going to be printing, because it's a bitmap now. So it's going to separate into little bitmaps and then print it. Now notice that the background image is completely gone. And the reason it's gone, because right here on the layer 1, we said no printing. The blue line is gone, so it says no printing, and that's why you cannot see it. So if we go ahead and cancel this, come back here and say, no, I do want to print it, okay? It's locked, but I want to print it. So when you go to Control-P, you can see now that the outline and everything is here, and you have a yellow around it, so you know that they're transparent, okay? If you remove transparency from this and Control-P again, this object is not transparent, but the overall is transparent, so you still stay in a transparent mode, okay? All right, let's go ahead and work a little bit more on the layers. With the layers, you got to pay attention what layer you're on, because it's easy to be on the wrong layer and draw the lines and then cannot figure out why you cannot adjust those lines, why you cannot move this. So in this case, for example, I'm going to go to the main plan, and I'm going to say that my projector or my screen, my screen is going to be right here. So I'm going to draw the screen and fill the color, and there's my screen, okay? And then all of the controls for the screen and all the boxes and everything is going to be in this little credenza right on the left-hand side. So I'm going to go ahead and outline the credenza, put it with the black color for right now, and then remote controls will be here someplace. Okay, so just for my view of how things are going to work. So let's go ahead and do the video. So this one's already on the main screen. Okay, so I may want to do the video routing. So I'm going to go to the video, click on video, and you can see right away as soon as I click on it, there's a video tab, and it says that you're working in the video right now. Now you can lock these objects on the main screen by pressing U, and now they're locked so you cannot move them. Or you can put them in a different layer and just use it as and lock it on a different layer. So let's go ahead and say that we have to run the cable to the screen. I mean, that's simple, but at least you'll have some idea. Now notice that when I run the cable, previously I did the glued cable, so I'm going to go ahead and press Tab, and now it's a normal cable run. You also have an option to have the crosshairs. Some people like to have crosshairs to align it. So it's the keyboard key is what we call tilde, and it's on the top left corner right next to number 1. So if you have this, you can go between the regular pointer and also crosshair pointer if you need to do this. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and say that that's where I'm going to put it for right now, and make it a little bit thicker. So that's going to be my video. If I want, I can go to the cable property and actually say HDMI, and let's say this is going to be my 25-foot cable, and apply to this. I also need to know the audio, so I'm going to have 2 speakers. So I'm going to, for right now, I'm just going to put a couple of speakers here, 1 speaker here, and 1 speaker here. Now notice, I'm still, once I cleaned everything, I'm on the main screen. So I'm putting them on the main screen, and I'm going to go ahead and click and lock them in place. So when I select, you see those gray selection bars? That means it's locked. Anytime the mouse pointer has a lock on it, that means the object is locked. If you press U, the object is unlocked, and you have the green little pointers, the handles. So I'm going to go ahead and lock them. So the cable box HDMI is coming from here. I'm going to move it a little bit to the left. We have a power amplifier, so I'm going to make it default a green color, and I'm going to go ahead and draw the wires for the speakers. Now, of course, this is just for example. You can have a wireless speaker. You can have whatever other options, but we're just pointing out what capabilities are available in AVSnap. Now remember, I'm using the Draw Assist, and the Draw Assist option is right here on the left-hand corner, 90 degrees. And the Draw Assist allows you to draw straight lines really quickly and connect things really quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and make it a little bit thicker. And if I want to, I can just go to the properties of a cable and put speaker wide, speaker 1 and speaker 2, okay? And property by pressing letter K on the keyboard. If you want it to show on both sides, you can just show it on both sides and adjust it vertically so that it stays right with the cable. Now you see there's a little bit small space here, so it's hard to see it, so you can always move it out a little bit to the left, and you can also adjust the size of the text to make it smaller, okay? Or increase the line here. Okay, so there's some limitations. I mean, what you can also do is just make it smaller or show it only on one side. So I'm going to go ahead and remove it from this side, but show it only on one side. And I'm going to do the same thing. Vertical, and since it doesn't look very good on this side, we're just going to remove it. And what I'm doing, I'm pressing a key called left arrow and right arrow, triangular bracket key on the keyboard, and that allows me to cycle through the different options for the speakers and for the wire nets, okay? So now I'm going to go ahead and select this, and I'm going to move them to audio. All right, so now we have plans, audio, video. So if I need to work just on video or audio, I can just click here, and I can see right away that I only have a speakers. Now, what people do sometimes, they say, okay, I'm not going to put plans on the layer. I'm going to go ahead and select this, create a different page, new page, and let's say I'm going to do one page, and I'm going to call this page a template. And that may work sometimes better than layer. Put this in a template, come back here, remove it from play layer completely, okay? And then apply the template page to this page right here. So now it's template, yes. Okay. So now when you go to audio, or you go to video, you can see that you're still on the same page. Okay, so now it looks like that this one also needs to move to the video layer, and then all of these needs to move to the main layer. Okay, and now you can see there's your audio, there's your video, and if you turn it on, that's combined together. So this is how you kind of see. This is how you align all the different signals on the project, and you can have multiple layers, and you can define multiple functionality on each of the layers. Okay, so we covered that. We also covered the background images, overall transparency. We also looked at the individual symbols, how to save individual symbols, and placing individual symbols on the project. You already know that. Just by taking it from the desktop and just moving it here, it will move it right into the project. Okay, and you also know how to print the transparent project now. So Control P, you can see this is your whole project, and if you want to see it, you make sure that you go to transparent. Okay, and that will show you all of the objects in the printing. All right, let's jump back a little bit for the symbols and see what else can we do here. So I'm going to go ahead and add the symbol here for now, and maybe add my symbol here also. Okay. Again, for purpose of demonstration, one of the things we can do, we can create a library from a project, and that's on the right-hand side. You click anywhere on the right-hand side, and it says Create Library from a Project. That means when you're working on your project and you're creating symbols and you're putting all the stuff together, you don't have to worry about the library until you're finished. Once you're finished and everything looks good, you can move it to the library and then clean up the library and then update it back in the project. So in this case, if I want to create a library from a project, I just go ahead, click on this, and it's going to tell me where do you want to save it. And I'm going to say, let's put it on desktop, and I'll call it Project 1. And it's asking you library name, and I'll call it Project 1. And now it saved it. So I had two symbols here. It moved it to two symbols. Now, there's no names on the symbols, so you may need to clean this up. But at least you have a library available. So double-click on this, right-click, and say Edit Library, okay, right here. So before we do this, we want to save the project. Save, yes. And we're going to put it back into the desktop, and this is going to be my Project 1. Go ahead and save this. Okay, now we're in the library symbol edit. Notice that when I created the symbol, it was very large, so that the line was thicker. So now that we made it zoom a little bit smaller, I need to make the lines thinner. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust the weight to 0.1 maybe. And 0.1, and now your lines are nice and thin. You can go to Properties now, put a designator, Laptop, put a model number, Dell 2800, description, PC, something like this. And now you have the information here. Okay. Right-click and say Save. Oh, you can just press it, Control S, okay. And right here we have an option called Return to Project. So when you return to project, it will load the new project in. It will also adjust the symbol. So now it's adjust the symbol back to whatever the symbol you had. But the problem is here, because we don't have a designator, it didn't know how to match, because it matches the designator. So if you have a designator, so before you save it, if you edit the symbol and put a designator on it, LT, then when you return to project, it would be able to match the symbol in the library to a symbol in the project, and it would adjust it. So if we adjust the thickness of the lines here, it would adjust the thickness of the lines on a symbol in the project. Okay, so very good. Now on the libraries, let's go ahead and look on the libraries here. We already talked about printing the library. You can edit the library. You can close the library. You can close all the libraries. So if you don't need to use it, library takes space, and the program becomes just a slightly slower if you have lots of libraries open. So sometimes I just close all the libraries if I work on a project. And then when I need to, I just add the libraries, okay? And when you add the libraries, it will automatically go to the default directory where the libraries are saved at the time you install the program. And you can just select multiple libraries at the same time and just kind of load them. They're all going to load at the same time. Now, I have a bunch of libraries that I've created for myself. So if I want to have a display, I have a display. If I want to have a screen, I can just drop the screen with the different backgrounds and so forth. But repeatable patterns is if I want to fill something in with a repeatable pattern. So let's go ahead and do that also. So if you have a rectangle, one of the options of a rectangle is to fill the rectangle with a bitmap. Okay? So in the bitmap, you can select the bitmap anything you want. And once you select the bitmap, it will be filled with the bitmap. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and click on F6, and I'm going to just capture the logo, AVSnap logo, really quick here. And the AVSnap logo goes into the folder, special folder I have, which is called the WIP folder. So we'll go to desktop. There's my message images. And, and you notice what happens. I don't have that image here. And the reason I don't have the image here, because I'm capturing the images in JPEG. For the fill to work, you need to be in the bitmap. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the JPEG off, put the bitmap in, and go ahead and close this. Come back to do exactly the same thing. F6, capture the image right here. Now I'm going to go ahead and select it, and I will have it desktop, images, and there's my image. So I'm going to go ahead and open that and apply. And you can see that now your rectangle is filled with the images, and as you go through, you have this. So if you have repeatable patterns, you can do that with repeatable patterns also. Okay, but sometimes depending how you want to make your program look. And I want to talk a little bit about the library and how we manage the libraries. Okay, now in our case, how we manage library at Altinex, and maybe that will help you to see how you manage libraries in your location. So I'm going to go ahead and close all the libraries. And what we did in Altinex, we have created a Y drive. On the Y drive, we have lots of different folders, but one of the folders is library.av. Okay. And library.av right here, the library.av, this is the controlled location. That means anybody can read from this location, but nobody can write except the librarian. And the librarian is one person that we have in the company that's responsible to making sure that all the libraries have latest updates and everything else. So people can submit the libraries to the librarian, and the librarian actually uploads it here and makes it available to everybody else. So I recommend to work with your AV person so that you can set up the right access to the libraries, and so the library integrity is intact as you develop libraries. So you can do it definitely by yourself, but it's going to be a duplicate work if you have to create a library and then other people in your organization have to create libraries, the same libraries, over and over again. So in this case, let's say I have manufacturer's libraries, I have Altinex, and here I have all the libraries here. And these are controlled libraries that are controlled by a librarian. And if I need to update the library, I either provide to the librarian an individual symbol, so I can just send a symbol and say, here, I'd like to add this symbol to the library, or I just download the library to my desktop, work on it, specify what I've changed, and send it back to the librarian, and she will verify it and put it back in. He or she will verify it. All right, we have about 10 minutes left in our webinar, and I'm going to go ahead and open all the mic lines if you have any questions, so we can go together. So let me Okay, so we have, let me go ahead and pause the sharing just for 1 second so I can switch to a different mode. Okay, switching
All
to Q&A
attendees
mode.
are muted and may unmute themselves by pressing *6.
Okay, so whoever needs to ask questions, you can unmute yourself now and we'll get the questions. But I do have on the chat, I have a couple of questions, and one of the questions is the plant picture JPEG? Yes, the plant picture JPEG, this will accept any type of bitmap. So it could be JPEG, PNG, whatever you can put, or bitmap. Now, once it's moved on the page, we convert everything to JPEG. So double-click here and double-click on the page, or press letter P for shortcut for the page. And you can look at the global settings, okay, which defines how the program works. And right here, it says compress project file, and that means when you save the file, we will compress it default or maximum or the fastest. So depending how, if you have a large file, I would just say fastest because it will be much faster to work with it. Default is just for normal up to about 20, 30 pages. But if you have more than that or large bitmaps, you would want to do faster. Right here you have an option, convert bitmap images to JPEG. Now remember, when you convert to JPEG, you actually change the properties of the file, and it's not as sharp. It has some compression. So if you're putting an image that you really want to look sharp and clean and aligned to the pixels on the screen, you don't want to convert it. So you may want to undo this like this, okay? But if you don't mind, if you're just putting pictures for references, then you just keep it as converting. This will tell you the quality of the conversion. And the rest of it, right here, there's a backup, and you can decide how often you back up the files, okay? In this case, I said I want to back up files every 2 minutes as I work with them. Okay, great. So if I go to the help and I go to recover files, it goes right here, and it shows here are the 3 2-minute intervals, 8:50, 8:48, 8:46. And it will rotate here, so you have a 6 minutes of backup. And in 99.9% of the time, this is all what you need. If something goes wrong, computer shuts down, programs crash, or anything else, you can go back and do this. Now, we do have a DXF import and DXF export. So you can import the DXF file. I don't have I didn't plan to go over it today, but on the next one, we will have in 2 weeks, we'll have a advanced webinar on the AVSnap, and we'll go over the importing different files, and DXF file is going to be one of those files that you can import. And we have different, the 6.0 now can import all the way to the current version, and we also added the DWG import and export, so that's a part of this. Okay, let's see. There's some people asking if, okay, any ETA on the V6. We are pretty much done with V6. They're just touch-ups, and we are planning to do this week. The latest would be next week. And we may release it if we cannot finish it 100% this week. We may release a beta version this week and then do the final version next week, because I know a lot of people have been asking us, so we want to get it. We also are going to be releasing an updated website, so we want it to coincide together so that they interact with each other, those websites. Now, you also probably notice here, it's possible to create several snap points on an object at a time. Yeah, that's a good question. So if you're in the design mode and you convert it to the symbol, and you want to add the snap point, so the only way to do it is to insert the snap point one at a time. Now, however, if you're in the library mode, and if you want to edit the symbol, so there's a library mode, and you want to just edit the symbol, and let's say the grid mode, the best way is just to use the clone option. You can see it in here. You can do, once you select the snap points, you can just copy paste, and it will give you more snap points, or you can actually go and select the clone tool right here. You can select all of them and you can drag them out, and you can just select again and then drag everything out. So there's a many way to do it, but I'm not sure exactly. I know what you're asking, but I think once you create the library, what I find a lot of times, once libraries are created, the main component is created, you can use that component, reuse it for different additional symbols. And if it has 4 inputs, and or 5 inputs, or 6 inputs, or 8 inputs, you can start with 8 inputs and just cut number of inputs. You can also create the libraries of snap points, and that's, I had one person, what they did the symbol, and they said that this snap point is going to be, and they put a little text here, so they did like this. They put this, and they put HDMI, they updated the snap point, and they put a text next to it. And the text says HDMI input with image. Okay. So there was their library like this, and they created one page with all of these. So when they started doing the project of symbols, they just copy this, so they don't have to re-enter data over and over again. They just copy this snap point and put it right into the symbol. Right. One more thing, and we're almost done. So one of the things that people have been asking me is about rotating the object, and I want to talk about this origin. Okay, you see this origin on the top left corner on the page. There's the origin, and that origin always stays on the top left corner unless you move it. Now, sometimes the grid is not in the right position. So I don't have in my mind example when it's not, but I've had a number of situations where I wish I could move the grid, and I'll explain you why. Let's say I moved the page, I moved the symbols accidentally, the whole page, and then I don't want to move anything else. It fits perfectly in the page, but I'd like it to be locked in the grid. So double-clicking on the origin object allows you to move the grid on the page. So let's say if you have a symbol, you would move the grid right to the end of the symbol, and now the symbol is locked to the grid. It's if you want to design a grid. So that's one of the functions, and you can move it back. Now remember, it will snap to the corner of the pages, okay? It's designed to snap to the corner if you want to. But there's a different option for this. So I'm going to double-click again. It goes back to normal origin. And I'm going to move the origin to the center here, right here, and I'm going to draw a rectangle. And you'll find this quite useful as you start working with this. If I want to mirror it, if I want to mirror a rectangle, well, as you can see, mirroring left and right doesn't change anything because it's a rectangle. Now, of course, if I change it, mirroring will change. But if I don't change it, well, what if I want to mirror it across a specific point? Okay, so I want to mirror it to the right side. So I can select the origin point, and I can select the object, and then I can mirror it. And you can see that it can mirror it against along the point. Okay, so if you want to mirror it vertically, just select both objects and mirror it up and down. So the same thing we do with rotation. If you take the object, and I'll put right now 5 degrees rotation just to give us a better understanding. Pressing space bar rotates it to the right. Shift space bar rotates it to the left. So I'm going to go ahead and space it. But what if I want to rotate it around a specific point? So I'm going to go ahead and select this, and I'm going to select this. And now I rotate things around a specific point. You see, some people say, well, why do you need this? I'll give you an example. Let's say if I want to create something that would look like this, and I'm going to copy paste, and then I'm going to select this and move it 30 degrees down, right there. So now I can copy paste this, select the origin, and just say 1, 2, and I have. So you can see you can do things that you cannot do manually. It would take a lot of time to do this manually. But because you have origin, you can do the alignment. The final thing before we finish, I just want to show you how to align things. If you have multiple rectangles, let's say I'm going to move them here, and you want to align them, You can just select all of your rectangles, and you can horizontally align them like this. And then you can spread them vertically between each other. So you're just moving this option. But what if you have a rectangle here and you want to align everything to this rectangle? Because if you don't have a specific rectangle that's selected, you don't know which rectangle you're aligning to, and the program will basically select the top left rectangle. But let's say I want to align it to that rectangle. So what I can do, I can lock it in place. You can see U, locked it in place. It has a little gray bars. Now that it's locked in place, everything is going to be referenced to that rectangle. Okay? So that's why it makes it so simple. Now, of course, this interfered with us, so that's why we couldn't do anything. But as soon as it sees the origin, it doesn't want to go past the origin. But if you want to lock one object in place, then you can align everything relative to this object. And this is 9 o'clock right now, and we're all done. If you have any questions, you can call us direct. We can help you out. And as far as the question, yes, the videos will be available probably in an hour. It renders for about an hour, and then we'll post it. We'll send another blast with the link to the video for this. Okay. Is it possible to create several? Okay. I think we answered all the questions. Thank you, everybody. It was great to see all of you here, and I really appreciate that you spent your morning hour with me. We'll see you next week, and we're going to go over advanced features for the library creations, and then we'll follow up with the programming. Week after that, we're going to have programming webinar, and more and more people emailed me and asked me for programming, so we're going to spend a little bit more time on the programming. Have a great morning, and thank you again for joining. See you next time.